Assalamualaikum. Hello everybody. Since the conditions which will getting worse, so we will start the class with online training, right? So I'll continue on with our classes, and the method that we will be using is will be used in online training classes. So you are here in my home, and we are going to continue on with our lesson on Engineering Mathematics 1. Okay, so hopefully that you guys are doing good, and you can watch this video and you can pause, or you can watch them over and over again just to get to know this topic, right? So before that, you should also download the notes that you have in the VLE, and make sure that you print them, or you know what is the exercise inside the also at the end of the class you will be able to do the exercise with the given inside the notes. All right, so I have also made some announcement in the VLE regarding the assignment, which you have to do the assignment for the partial fractions in the notes, that the one that we have used earlier in our notes. Okay, so today we're going to look at on a new topic which is called partial fraction. So a partial fraction is what we have actually known as the name implies, is basically a fraction. You solve them in the form of fraction, like the one you have fraction before, and you solve them, you solve a fraction. But this is what we call as partial. So where does that partial come from? So if you remember that last 2 weeks we have looked at on polynomial, right? We have learned about polynomial, right? So that polynomial notes that we have learned, if you still remember in our class, that we have a polynomial notes on algebra, which is still on chapter 2. So what is a polynomial? Remember that we have, for instance, like we have long division, right? In polynomial there are long division, and that long division normally will have, for example, you have 2x cubed plus 2x squared plus x plus 5, for instance, divided by x plus 2, right? So this is an example of polynomial problems, and you do the long division. You still remember that you do the long division, and you will get what we call as the remainder. And on the top here is you have the solved problem, which is called the quotient, which is the value of quotient. So if you change that into improper fraction, you will have quotient, right? Quotient, which is remainder over x plus 2. And this is in the form of fraction, right? Remainder over x plus 2. So this one, x cube r over x plus 2 is defined as, this one is defined as partial fraction, right? So remember that's what we have learned last week. So let's start with the partial fraction with a number 1. We're going to look at on the type of partial fractions. If you look at from the notes, there are 3 different types of partial fractions. So type number 1 is called the linear factor, and type number 2 is called the repeated linear, and type number 3 is called the quadratic factor. This is also a factor. So what are this linear factor, repeated linear? Where does the names come from? So the names essentially comes from the denominator here, right? So the denominator here represents this linear, whether it is linear, whether it is a repeated linear, whether it is a quadratic factor. If it's a linear, you have the denominator here will be only x plus 2, x plus 3, and so on. On this, there is only linear factor there, which is there is no square, there is no cube whatsoever on that. So if there is a repeated linear, meaning that you have this one will be square, for instance. That is called the repeated linear. And then you have a quadratic factor, which is this form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. Alright? Okay. So let's look at on number 1 on repeated linear. What is the meaning of repeated linear? On partial fractions with repeated linear denominator. So this one representing the denominator. This one also representing the denominator. Right. So let's look at on type number 1 first, which is if you have a denominator containing of fx divided by this is term here which is linear, which in this case x plus a, x minus b, and then you have x plus c. So if you see this type of factors, which is 1, 2, 3 different type of factor, this is known as linear, right? This is only known as linear. So if you solve this, this is a fraction. So when you do fractions, remember that when you do a fraction, you will have a form of in terms of partial, right? So if you solve this, it will become, right? It will become a over this term x plus a plus b over x minus b plus c over x plus c. So this are the solution for this type of fraction. So when you solve this, you will get, or you can decompose them into this 3 different fractions: a, b, and c. A over this one over this one over this one. Alright? So this a value, b value, and c value, this is the one that you should calculate. You should find the value of that one. Okay? Have a look at a repeated linear. When you have a repeated linear, it will give you that this one, the second one here, fx divided by x plus a cube, right? That is called, this is called the repeated linear factor, where the denominator shows the denominator is actually in terms of repeated form of factor. So you're going to have a solution for this one will be a over the denominator will be x plus a is 1 plus b over x plus a squared, yeah, plus there's another one there, c over x plus a cube, right? So that is the type of solution that you can find, and again you should find the value of a, again from b, and the value of c. In terms of quadratic factor, right? In terms of quadratic factor, you will see that fx will be in the form of fx, or the fraction will be, denominator will be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, right? Then there's another factor here, x plus d. Let's say this is your denominator of an expression of the partial fraction. So what you should do with this one is that you should decompose them to become, how do you decompose this type of fractions? It will become ax plus b divided by this term here, ax squared plus bx plus c, denominator, and then you have plus c over x plus d. So this is the value. You need to find the value of a, value of b, and the value of c. So this is different type of partial fractions, which is called, depending upon denominator of the fractions. This is number 1 called the linear factor, repeated linear factor, and quadratic factor. So the solution that you may or you can solve this type of partial fractions is, first of all, you have to define whether the problem is linear, whether the problem is repeated linear, or whether the problem is quadratic factor. So when you define that, then you can choose which value of A, B, C that you can find, and you can find which solution that you should use to solve your partial fraction. So this is the end of part 1. I'm gonna make another video on part 2, which is how to solve each of the factors here. All right. So thank you very much, and I'll see you again in the next video.